In a grand old oak tree, nestled deep in the whispering woods, lived a young squirrel named Squeaky. This wasn't just any tree. It was his brand new home, and he had spent weeks, from sunup to sundown, gathering the finest acorns he could find. He had a secret little nook, a hollowed-out knot in the wood, which he had packed to the brim. It was his treasure, his winter promise, his pride and joy. He'd pat the entrance with a satisfied little chirp every night before curling up to sleep, dreaming of crunchy, nutty feasts. One crisp autumn morning, a sliver of sunlight peeked through his leafy window, tickling his nose. Squeaky stretched, yawned a mighty squirrel yawn, and trotted over to his pantry for a morning snack. He reached his paw into the nook, expecting to feel the smooth, hard shell of an acorn. But he felt nothing. Just rough wood. His heart did a funny little flip-flop. He peeked inside. Empty. Completely, utterly, shockingly empty. Not a single acorn was left. Panic flared in his chest. His fur stood on end. Gone? Oliver, all his hard work. It couldn't be. He frantically dug around the entrance, tossing aside stray leaves and bits of bark. Nothing. A thief. No good. Acorn-nabbing thief had raided his home in the dead of night. A wave of indignation washed over him. How dare they? He puffed out his chest, his whiskers twitching with fury. This would not stand. He was going to find the culprits and get his acorns back. Every last one of them. His sharp eyes scanned the floor around the base of the oak. And there, in the soft dirt, he saw it. A clue. A trail of tiny paw prints, much smaller than his own, leading away from his tree. Alongside the prints were scattered fragments of acorn shells, like breadcrumbs left by the brazen robbers. Determination hardened his resolve. With a flick of his bushy tail, Squeaky became a detective. He leaped from his branch and landed silently on the ground, his nose to the trail. The great acorn hunt had begun. The tracks led him on a wild chase through the forest floor. He scurried over mossy stones, ducked under giant ferns, and zipped past bewildered beetles. The trail was fresh. He could almost smell the phantom scent of his stolen breakfast. He passed Old Man Badger's burrow. Could it be him? No, the prints were too small. He saw Mrs. Rabbit hopping with her little ones. Definitely not them. The mystery deepened, and Squeaky's frustration grew with every step. Who in this forest was so small and so sneaky? He followed the clues deeper into a sun-dappled grove he'd never explored before. The sound of cheerful chittering and giggling reached his ears. He slowed his pace, creeping forward with the stealth of a shadow. Peeking through a thicket of berry bushes, he saw them. The thieves. It was a whole family of chipmunks, tumbling and playing in a clearing. And right in the middle of their game was a mountain of his acorns. They were tossing them to each other, rolling them down a smooth rock like bowling balls, and nibbling on them as if they were an endless supply of free snacks. One little chipmunk, with a stripe that was slightly crooked, noticed Squeaky glaring from the bushes. He froze. Mid-toes, an acorn clutched in his tiny paws. The giggling stopped. All eyes turned to the furious squirrel. Squeaky burst from his hiding spot. "You!" he chirped, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and exhaustion. "You're the thieves! You stole all my food!" The chipmunks looked at each other, their faces a picture of confusion. The one with the crooked stripes scampered forward. "Stole," he squeaked, his voice full of surprise. "We didn't steal them. We found them." Another one added, "Yeah. They were just sitting at the bottom of the big oak tree. We thought they were a gift from the forest." They explained how they had seen the acorns piled up at the base of the tree, assuming someone had left them for anyone to take. They hadn't climbed up into his nook. They'd simply gathered what had fallen. Squeaky blinked. Fallen, he thought back. Had he been a bit clumsy yesterday? piling his acorns so high, had some of them tumbled out and down the trunk during the night. He remembered being particularly tired and just stuffing the last few in before collapsing into his nest. A blush crept up his furry cheeks. He looked at the mountain of acorns, then at the innocent, wide-eyed faces of the chipmunks. They weren't thieves. They were just opportunistic, and a little bit silly. The anger drained out of him, replaced by a wave of embarrassment. He had been so quick to judge. The little chipmunk with the crooked stripe timidly pushed an acorn towards him. "We're really sorry," he said. "We didn't know they belonged to you. You can have them all back." Squeaky looked at the offering. He looked at the group of small, stripy creatures who now looked very guilty. And then a funny thing happened. A chuckle escaped his lips. Then another. Soon, he was laughing, his whole body shaking with it. The chipmunks watched him, puzzled at first, but his laughter was infectious. A small giggle started from one, then another, until the whole grove was filled with the sound of chittering, squeaking laughter. The great acorn heist had turned into the great misunderstanding. "It's okay," Squeaky said, wiping a tear of laughter from his eye. "It was my fault for being messy," as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A wonderful idea popped into Squeaky's head. "You know," he said, "I have a lot of acorns. Far too many for one squirrel to eat alone." You'll seem to know how to have a good time. The chipmunk's ears perked up. "Why don't we share them?" Squeaky proposed. "We can have a feast. Right here, right now, eh?" Chorus of excited squeaks answered him. The chipmunks immediately set to work, helping Squeaky carry the acorns back to his oak tree. But instead of putting them back in the secret nook, they spread them out on a large, flat root at the base of the tree. They brought berries they had found, and Squeaky shared some sweet tree sap he knew how to find. It became a party, the first of many. From that day on, Squeaky was never alone. The chipmunks became his best friends. They helped him gather food, and he helped them find the best places to play. His new house in the big oak tree wasn't just a home anymore. It was the heart of the friendliest spot in the entire forest. Squeaky learned that a home isn't just a place to store your acorns, but a place to share them. And he realized that sometimes